Welcome to Access. This is our first video, and Nicole's already mad at me because we were supposed to start at 10. I say
9.
Yeah. But here we are, and today we're going to talk about Genesis. The whole point of Access is designed to give you access into the Bible if you've never had any experience with it before. So we are not attempting to be exhaustive.
Not at all.
Even particularly brilliant.
It's not going to happen.
No, but we do have cool shoes. Show me shoes. Yeah, that's right.
He only saw the soles.
They saw your soul. So Nicole is going to talk to us about authorship of Genesis, then I'm going to talk about historical context, major themes, and then we're going to talk about stories.
So, Genesis is the first book of the Bible, which you should probably know. And how it came about is it is a collection of oral tradition. And so basically what happened is that the Hebrew people told their stories, they got collected and then written down, and then they got refined and reorganized. And so sometimes we have the same story twice, or but different versions because they're both important.
I thought it was just because we're slow.
No.
No? Okay.
There's a purpose to it. It's not like a super mistake.
Alright.
Yeah.
All things have a purpose.
They really do.
Alright.
And the nice thing about Genesis is that it's not a history book and it's not a science book, which I think sometimes...
What?
I know. For reals. And I think we try to impose that sometimes. But it's a story, and that's great because by looking at it as a story, we can have the human story and God's story intertwined together, which is really what the text is doing. Whereas if you're only going with history, you don't really get to talk about God. So that's why it's not a history book. And yeah, so that's
all
important
good
to know. What else about authorship?
Why don't we save the JEDP stuff for another day?
Yeah.
Another book.
Yeah.
Because we got the whole Pentateuch to go.
Ugh.
Alright, we can talk about the historical context, what's going on in the world. We actually, we have a little book here. Bernard Anderson, I think it's Bernard and not Bernard, but since we went to Princeton, we all use the same books.
I don't have that book.
And so we had to kind of look back ourselves, but Abraham and this whole cycle, 2000 to 1800, again, we're not like entirely sure the Bible itself did not come with little tags that said, this is when this happened. That would have been helpful.
Yeah, not a history book.
No, but, best we can with archaeology and narrative stuff, we try to figure out when these things happen. So, what's going on in the larger world, because the little Hebrew world, kind of small, like
Tiny.
1A high school, Estacada, I don't know. But big 5A high school countries going on. You got the Sumerian Empire, dynasty, whatever it is going on. Sumer, very important. They give us beer, Nicole.
And we're so grateful.
That is right. It all occurs in modern-day Iraq, Iran. They build giant step pyramids. They have these cool little figures that have giant eyes in these. It was kind of good to know. What else? Oh, Code of the Hammurabi going on right now. And so there's a giant stele with Hammurabi, who is a ruler, who is receiving the law from God. Sound familiar? It should.
Yeah.
And it's written down. I forget how many laws. It's like 150 something. That's why Exodus, huge improvement. You only have 10. That's nice.
It's nice. Simplified.
It's faster, easier. So that's what's going on in the larger Middle Eastern world. Egypt is also going on. I believe it's Ramses III. So we've got a lot of these giant pyramid things, that have already gone up. But Egypt also a major player at the time, and we'll see that with the Joseph cycle.
Yeah, and I think that's important to note that that the Hebrews aren't operating in a vacuum.
No.
Not at all. And they are...
You get really dirty if you operate in a vacuum.
I know, it's quite dusty.
Exactly.
And that might explain living in the desert.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We're going to be like this, by the way. I'm sorry.
That they're really influenced by the cultures that are around them as well. And so I think that's really interesting
We don't
to
need
know.
to be worried about that,
No.
defend it. They borrow, they put their own spin on it, though.
Yeah, and they use kind of the cultural norms around them to express their own faith, which is very cool of them and something that we do today. Yay!
So themes, we've got creation, Genesis, it means creation. We have multiple stories going on. Nicole's going to talk to us about that in a little bit. Election or call. The Hebrew people had this very peculiar and unique belief that God doesn't sit way up high somewhere and only intervenes in tiny little wooden statues when you ask for it. This is a God who actually comes down to us and speaks.
Yeah.
So right in the smack middle beginning of this story, God's going to come down and call Abraham and call him to an amazing ministry that Nicole will talk about. And then, this is kind of a more unusual piece. A guy named Robert Farrar Capon talks about power as right-handed and left-handed. Right-handed power is when God acts in ways that are obvious and easy to see, and this happens all the time when God intervenes in these stories and is clear. But then he talks about left-handed power, or kind of sneaky power. I'm left-handed, so I know, you gotta watch me.
I'm right-handed.
Uh-huh.
I'm pretty obvious.
So the left-handed side is when things are occurring in hidden ways or mysterious ways. All through the book of Genesis and then through the rest of the Bible, we're going to see not only does God act in obvious and clear ways, but in hidden ways too. An example, one of the ways you can talk about Genesis is the primordial history. You've got then the Abraham cycle, then you've got the Isaac cycle, the Jacob cycle, and the Joseph cycle. In their world, God would almost always work, you would expect, through the oldest male son. There's a law called primogeniture, and the oldest male-born son got all the land, got everything, made probate court a lot easier. And yet, God, throughout Genesis, is always almost working through the youngest or the second-born son. So instead of Ishmael, the firstborn son, you get Isaac coming along. Instead of Esau, the hairy-armed, mouth-breathing firstborn. We talked about mouth-breathing earlier, by the way.
Yeah.
Firstborn son, Nicole, help me understand. You get Jacob, the sneaky little coming
Usurper.
in. The usurper.
That's what Jacob means.
That's what it means. And then Joseph, coat of many colors. You probably is there a song like?
I think like
Dreamcoat.
Andrew Lloyd Webber made a song,
The
but not.
most powerful son or most powerful kid, not the oldest.
He's the last of 12.
The youngest. And don't stick your children in pits. Don't stick your brothers in pits because they'll come back and it won't go well.
You're gonna have to read that story on your own about the pits.
So go for it, Nicole.
So
we're
picking 3 stories that really exemplify these themes. And so the first story we're going to look at is creation. And I think this is the thing that people are probably most familiar with, the in the beginning kind of booming.
You have to read it like that.
Yeah, you kind of do. It helps. That the 7 days, or 6 days of creation and 7th day is the rest, the Sabbath day, that this is kind of the story that most people are familiar with. And it's on the 6th day that that humans are created, and it's kind of this big cosmic scene. Okay, this is kind of the closest, or it's just a big God, and that's kind of the thrust of the story, is how powerful God is, and so that's a really interesting part of it. The second part of the creation story, because there are 2, shocking, they're right next to each other, they're not trying to hide it, and this isn't a mistake. That's what one of my college professors told me.
Look, a mistake.
This is why the Bible is bunk, because they have 2 creation stories right next to each other.
And that's not so.
Not at all.
They're just telling us different things about the creation.
They're telling us different aspects. Yeah.
Good word.
I know. It's different perspectives. And so in the second creation story, which happens in Genesis 2, very nice, it's at the beginning.
That's easy.
I know. Genesis 1 is where you get the big story, and big creation. You get like this